if you go to the last sheet of your handout, that shows all of the history. Is that the one, Kristen?
Yes.
So if you go down to the very bottom, to the fire fund for 2020, you say you're gonna have an ending balance of $15,000.
Correct.
We know that's not true.
No, that probably will be true.
I'd love for it to be true, but in fact, you're gonna have at least $100,000 there. As all years going back, you've had several times the amount of the estimated ending cash balance. Do you pay your firemen?
They have their own fund. We just contract with the fire department.
And you make a quarterly payment to them?
Correct. We did have some more expenses because we dipped into our cash balance for a fire truck. And we brought on the fire chief a couple of years ago as a township employee, and that's eating away at our cash balance, so.
But my point is, you're saying you're gonna have $15,000 at the end of 2021. So you're not gonna be able to pay your contract, because it's gonna be more than 15 grand for the first quarter payment.
Correct, we'll have to adjust the payment date.
I think what you need to do is be more honest with the actual forecasting. And frankly, that needs to be done with all of your accounts. When you tell the taxpayers you're gonna have an $81,000 balance, but you end up with an actual balance of $430,000 in the general fund, I think you're misleading the taxpayers. In Road and Bridge, you said in 2019 you would have $147,000 dollars in any cash balance. You actually had $558,000. I think you're misleading the taxpayers. It's got to be done better. Every single fund, the estimated ending cash balance is off by at least 300%. That's a factor of 3. I don't know many businesses that can operate that way. I have nothing further.
So Fred, if you would look at your submitted budget, I'm concerned with the cash balances that Chris mentioned, but I think I may find an issue that may magnify that a little bit. In 2020, this year, you show a transfer out of the general fund of $19,295. That's for 2020. And then you have a $28,000 transfer out estimated for 2021. And it appears that that transfer out in 2021 is going to your fire fund.
Correct.
Okay, but if you look at the 2020 transfer out of the general fund, you're transferring in to the fire fund $89,295. So there has to be another source of that transfer, and that's coming out of your debt fund. So your debt fund shows a $55,606.22 transfer out. But if you add those two numbers together, you don't get, you're short $14,393.78 for this year. So this is not so much a 2021 budget, but it's going to affect your beginning balances, because anything you do in 2020 is going to carry forward. So somewhere there's a math problem. The transfers out should equal transfers in, because there's no hidden funds in the township. And I find there's a shortage of 14,000, unless I'm missing something. So I show transfers out and in 2020 out of the general fund, the 2191 fund, which is your fire fund, your 3101 debt fund. But if you add all those up for 2020, I'm short of transfers out, which means there's no source for that money, which means somebody's going to be $14,000 short at the end of the year. And if it happens to be the fund that Chris is pointing to, you're going to be at zero, right? Because that's $15,000 balance.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but that's not reality.
I know, but I'm looking at the math of the numbers.
No, I mean, that's a fake number, that's 15,000.
Right. So I mean, so you gotta, probably gotta do something to fix 2020's transfers. And I thought maybe it was just a typo, but it's an odd number, you know, it's not like $10,000, it's $14,393.78. That's what I find missing. So I don't know if there was another transfer somewhere, but I couldn't find it. That's all I've got.
Okay, I'll make a note of that.
I just don't know how long we're gonna let these variations between actual and estimates go on.
Well, I know how to make that stop.
Yeah, I think I'm with you on that.
Well, but you guys have to remember, if you have to take into account levies that were put on the ballot that were not included in the budget. So they're gonna falsely report their revenue because they can't predict a levy will pass until it does. And so, for example, if they had you have any levies going on right now, Fred?
Yeah, we have a 1.8 levy for the fire fund and a renewal of a 1 mil levy.
So they can't count that revenue until it passes. They can't assume that revenue will be there. So they will lower their revenue estimate, which will artificially change their ending balance number. And until that happens, you can't predict it. Unless they artificially reduce their expenditures, but again, that's what a budget is all about, it's a guess.
I do know that the trend is that we have been eating into our cash balances. In fact, in the fire fund, I have concerns about that fund because of how low we are on our cash balance. The general fund has been reduced. We have a pavilion project that's going to be happening soon. We've got a new truck in the road and bridge department, and request for equipment purchases from the fire department. All that, I'm trying to figure out how to juggle money to make those things happen.
The levy excuse doesn't make up for the general fund issues.
No.
I mean, that.
Did you transfer any inside millage from your road and bridge to the general fund this year?
No, we did not.
I'll move to approve.
Is there more to that statement? There was like,
We need a
There was
second.
a
I
pause.
was second.
Is there a mechanism where he could come back and fix these 2020 numbers, adjust them mid-year for us?
Well, he's gonna have to correct it in UAN. I'm surprised UAN lets you do transfers in and outs without being in balance. That's what is kind of
That's what I
shocking.
don't understand
That's shocking to me.
about these numbers.
But we've had several that have done that. Because you get half, you book the transfer out, let's say. If you get interrupted, you may not remember to put the transfer in somewhere. So you got a floating number somewhere.
But there would be a much greater disparity, I think.
Yeah, it would match one of the other numbers, I would think.
So I'm just confused about that 14, basically $15,000 that appears to be floating out there because it should be somewhere according to the accounting software.
Right.
I'll have to look
I
into
mean,
that.
you want a whole pending,
Well, just vote no on it is what I'm gonna do.
There's a motion that's been made and seconded. You call the question. We'll go from there.
I'll vote yes.
I vote no.
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 So you'll have to fix those numbers, Fred, and come back.
Okay?
I would like to see some real 2020 numbers with where we think the accounts are actually gonna end up. honest, we should be able to put our finger on that a little better.
That would have a profound impact on my decision. Okay,
Nothing to sign, right?
no, not at present.
Okay, thanks, Fred.
Okay.
We'll have to reschedule for, if you get to find out where that money is, and
Yeah, and I'll take
Fix
a
it in
look at the
UAN.
2020 numbers.
you'll have to print new budget sheets for us, if you don't
Okay.
mind, because that's gonna change your beginning balance of 2021. It's gonna ripple through the system.
When are we gonna do this, on like the 31st?
Well, yeah, that's part of our discussion when we go through general business that we want to do. 'Cause